Hi, I'm Chuck, KK6USY, and this is Ham Radio Ventures. On my last video, I talked about if you needed or wanted, or why you would want a gain antenna. Today we're going to talk about the different types of gain antennas and why you may or may not want a certain type of antenna for where you live. Let's get started. Now, it's been a while since I made the last video, and let me just show you a few things I've been doing that's made my life a little busy. It's been super hot here, and let me just show you a few things that I've been doing and why I haven't been making videos recently. All right, guys, so this is what I've been doing here recently, besides a couple other things I'll show you too. But I've been boxing up antennas. This is how we ship them. We can get 2 in here, save you postage if you want 2, or you and a friend that live near each other. And I've been winding wires. I mean, this takes a lot of the time right here. We got 90 feet of wire, so there's more than enough for your antenna and your counterpoise, and with a little bit left over. So if you make a mistake, it's not a big deal. And then I've been putting together these kits. These take a little bit of time too. You got to cut all this wire. Let me get the glare off there, and put all the parts in these little bags. And you also get this sticker too. So that's what I've been doing, guys. That's why I haven't been putting out videos, partly. And then that's pretty much the reason. That and one other job, and I'll show you some clips of that also.
Okay, here's a yurt that we're building for a friend, and it's been really hot up there in the hundreds a lot of days, and we're just trying to do a really good job for her and just make it as perfect as we can. Fun cutting circles with a skill saw.
Okay, guys, if you want to purchase one of our antenna kits, down in the description I'll leave a link to it. It's called the Barefoot Guys, and www.com, but I'll leave it down on the thing for make it easy for you guys. So go there. We're trying to keep them in stock. I do a lot of work trying to keep them, all the kits built. I do most of the kit building on these last antennas, and we're small, we're just getting started, and we get better every time. So check it out down below in the description. Okay, there's a lot of different types of antennas that you can get gain with, and I'm going to go through most of those for you. There may be some I miss. If there is, go ahead and put it down in the description and let us know a different antenna that you might know of, okay? I'm going to go through a few different brands because I actually own a couple different brands, plus a homemade one or 2, maybe 3. Okay, so the first antenna we're going to talk about is a cubicle quad. Now the cubicle quad, people that own these things love them. They work really good. If you ever heard a guy on a cubicle quad at super long distance and stuff like that, with a little bit of power, they sound awesome. Now, not that an antenna makes you sound awesome, it just puts that signal out there. And there's a reason a lot of people like them, but it may not be the best antenna for you. And we'll talk about that. Let's take a look.
Okay, so I'll put a link to this spot in the description. So why do I prefer cubicle quads? This guy goes on and on about different qualities and good things and bad things about the cubicle quad. Now, if you look at this one here, this one has multiple bands. I forgot you could do this. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like 6 different bands. And the hard part of this is these are really big antennas. They're huge because this is a full wave versus a Yagi, which is a half wave. So these hubs right here, that's probably the hardest part of the whole thing, making those, and then also keeping them straight on this boom here. But if you go down, and I don't have enough time to go through all this, but I'll show you some of the comparisons he does with the Yagi. So here's a 2-element Yagi. Takeoff angle, it's 12.4 dB gain and 12 degree takeoff. This is the quad, or the cubicle quad. So, and then he has and that's at 35 feet, it says. And then down here he goes 11.1 and 14 degree, and front to back of minus 8 dB, but the front to back is the biggest, minus 24 dB here. So that's for the biggest difference, 12.4 to 11.1. Okay, so I don't have time to go through this whole thing, but you can change the polarization of these by where you do the feed at also. So there's a lot of information here, and I will put this in the description. And here's a simple 2-element one here. A lot of times in the old days, these were made with bamboo and they didn't last real well. And this is one of the things he says, if you look right here, ice and ice storms was the downfall of cubicle quads. So if you live in an area that has a lot of snow, a lot of ice, and ice storms and stuff like that, probably not the best antenna for your area. Okay, that's one of the big disadvantages for it. Okay, so here's a 3-element 20-minute Yagi versus a quad. The green being the quad and the red being the Yagi. And this starts around 8, just a little below 8, like 7.9 versus 9.7, something like that. So here's a 5-element quad and a Yagi in free space. And then it comes down here and here's a nice picture of one here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 element. And after 4 or 5 elements or 6 elements, it's diminishing gain. So it doesn't really do good to build them any bigger. But and he has a how to build a cubicle quad. So you guys might want to check this out. And then he has his ham radio antenna growth. Figured you guys would like this one. So an IMAX 2000, a wire, a 3-element Yagi, a 4-element Yagi, and then the 4-element quad. One of the things that is good about the quads is being like a closed system. I think here is they're supposed to be quiet. Okay, so that's about all we can say, and you guys can look at this on your own and read it in depth. Okay, so that's where we're going to leave this. On to the next one.
Okay, the next antennas I want to talk about are a wire type of a beam antenna, and that would be the Moxon, one of my favorites, and the Hexbeam, another favorite of mine. I've made both of those in smaller versions. The deal with a Moxon and a Hexbeam is they're kind of a folded dipole, basically, I guess is what you would call it. And you get a full-size element that some antennas with multiple bands don't have. And that is an advantage. And the nice thing about them is they take up less space because of the folding. They're not as wide as a monoband Yagi or something like that, which we'll talk about later also. So let's take a look at Moxons and Hexbeams and see why you may not want one of those for where you live.
Okay, so here's the Moxon antenna, and okay, so let's just let's go down to what they say, how it's built. The Moxon antenna design is rectangular, with slightly less than half of the rectangular being the driven element, radiator, and the other part, slightly more than half, being the reflector. It is a 2-element Yagi Yuda with a folded dipole elements and no directors. Now, the average one is just 2 elements, but there are people that have added directors also. So that's not always true, but that for the most part, most people build the 2-element one. And so here's a picture of a bigger one. This is probably like a 20, maybe 20 meter or something like that. And I have a build on a 20 meter one that I'll also link in the description for you guys if you want to watch that video. It's pretty nice little setup, and I do take that out portable on POTAs and stuff like that. Now here's a small one. This one's all made out of aluminum. Now, the one I did was fiberglass poles, fishing bowls with wire. And if you look right here where this is the space. Okay, and I'll show you this on a better one. And if you look on this one, it's really hard to see, but if you look right there, there's a gap here. Okay, let me show you on this picture down here. Now if you look at this picture here, this blue section here is the gap, and that's a specific gap for each antenna. And then when you do a Moxon calculator, it'll tell you what that gap should be. And then you have your gap here for your right side and left side, or your basically this is a dipole that's bent. Okay, so it's a folded dipole with a folded dipole, or with a folded director or reflector. You guys can just look up Moxon antenna. There's a lot of different things. And Les Moxon is I think it was the name of the gentleman that. So here's a good site. And this is both of these antennas, the Hexbeam and the Moxon, are antennas that a lot of people would be able to build. I also have a build on this, and I use this site to get my sizes and stuff like that for the wires, and then for the actual plate. The plate I use is basically the same plate they show in here, but I made it lighter because I only did one band and I wanted mine for portable. But if you look at like parts, here's all the parts. It tells you. Okay, and I'll list this also. Let's see. Oh, here's your base plate. So it shows you how to make the base plate, and this is basically what I did in a lighter, smaller form. Okay, and then it tells you the arms. There's your arms, center post, and you have your wire sets. It tells you in here measurements, and this is a good picture here. This is the newer style. There was an older style that was different shape, but this one goes, basically it starts here. There's your folded dipole. It goes up and down, and then you have your gap, and then it goes into your reflector, okay? And then it comes into your other side of the dipole. And then they show you, here's, it's just like the Moxon, you have a section that has a space for the cords where it separates the two wires for your reflector and your driven. And then one of the nice things about these, they don't need a huge tower or anything. A lot of people put them on push-up poles, or they build their own setup like this, and it goes in here to tell you how to do all that stuff. All right. So like I said, I will have this in the description below, and I'll put a couple of my videos in the description also to go with this.
Okay, one of the most common gain antennas that most people have is a Yagi. Now, Yagis come in a couple different types and forms. Actually, a bunch of different types and forms, depending on the manufacturer. But for the most part, they come in a multiple band, tri-band, 5 bands, or a mono band. Now, the tri-bands, or say 5-band antennas, and some of them are actually adjustable. We'll talk about those next. But you lose a little. What you gain in having more bands, you might lose in the actual gain of the antenna. Okay, sorry about the wind, guys. It's just blowing my awning all over the place here. And when you gain multiple bands, what they're doing there sometimes is making coils or making it different lengths or whatever. However they accomplish multiple bands on one antenna, but you'll lose a little bit of the gain. It's not a whole lot, but you do lose a little bit. So if you're just a straight 20 meter or 15 meter guy, and that's all you ever do, you might want to buy a monoband, and we'll talk about both of those. And the Yagi is pretty nice because it's a fairly easy antenna to put multiple antennas on your tower, and I'll show you a picture of that on mine up here. Okay guys, here is the Yagis on my tower. The top one there is a 7-element 2-meter Yagi. It's set up for sideband. The second one down is a homemade 6-meter 5-element LFA. And the bottom one, and yes, that one element is crooked. So that is my TA33 Mosley. Okay, let's take a look at Yagis.
Okay, let's start here. This is the antenna I have, a TA33 Mosley. And we're going to compare this to a mono band, and I'll show you the difference in the gain in the front to back. And we're going to compare that on 20 meters. So mine does 10, 15, and 20. Okay, so and this is a picture of the antenna. It has these coils out here. Let me see if I can get a better picture. See these coils right here where my cursor is, and that's how they get the tri-band part of it. All right, and it makes it smaller, so it doesn't have to be as long on the elements. So it makes it a little bit more compact. Now this is 6.5. And then minus 20 on the dB on the front to back. Okay, excuse me. Yeah, 20. They're all 20. Okay, it's this one down here. And then if we go to a same brand. So the specs are kind of the same. So this is a CL203. So it's a mono bander, and instead of 6, what was this one? This one was 6.5 and 20. This one is 8.5 and 23, so a little bit bigger, a little bit better gain than the tri-bander, but you get multiple bands on the tri-bander. Now the boom length is 24 feet on this also versus I think 14 feet. And let's see, the elements on this are 37 feet. Let's just call it 38 because 37.7. And on the tri-bander, maximum length is 28 feet. So it's a lot smaller antenna, but it doesn't have quite the performance. Okay. So that's your kind of your differences there. And there's all kinds of companies besides Mosley. Mosley has just been around for a long time. Their stuff lasts for quite a while. Mine's probably made in the 60s, okay? And I did repair it just a little bit, but nothing major, and it cost me like less than $50 to fix it. Now, another company is M Squared. You have Cushcraft. You have all kinds of different brands. So you guys can look those up, but that's the basic part there.
Now, there are some antennas like the Step IR, and there's a couple other ones out there, I think, that are made in other countries. But that one's local to the United States. It's up in Washington, I think, is where they're based out of. And they use a different approach. And basically, they give you an antenna that gives you a full blown, a little bit like a Moxon, I would say. Kind of a folded dipole type of deal. But they use wires, and we'll show you how that works. But that's another great option, but it may not be the best antenna for you, depending on where you live. Like here in California, it's a great antenna. Other places, I don't know. If you own a Step IR, put down in the comments what you think of it, if you've had problems with it, or if you think it's a great antenna. I don't care. Just put down something in the comments. I don't own one, so a little out of my price range when I bought my antenna. I actually bought my antenna used, so it was really cheap, but it works really well. Let's check out the Step IRs.
Okay, so this is a DB11 Yagi antenna, 20 to 6 meter package, it says. Now, I did read up on them a little bit. They are a folded dipole design. When you look at the design, all those elements, each one of these all has a little motor in here, stepper motors, I think they call them. And then it's a piece of aluminum that runs through these closed tubes here, and it's threaded like a chain sprocket kind of. And if I can find a picture of something like that, I'll show it to you. But basically, what it does is it does kind of like a Moxon, only this is 3-element, where it's a full size dipole or reflector or director, but it adjusts. And it has a controller that adjusts it. And one of the really cool things about these, I talked to you guys about front to back on a Step IR here. You can hit a switch and it will immediately, instead of turning the antenna around, it'll immediately go the other direction. Okay, so that's kind of a cool option. They're not cheap. Like I said, that's one reason I don't have one. But and the other thing is, I do believe there's some upkeep to them, and this is probably, I don't know. Like I said, people can leave comments in the bottom there. This might not be an antenna you want where you have ice storms and stuff like that, much like the cubicle quad, and actually any of the wire type antennas like that also. The regular Yagi is probably being the most antenna that you can put into the most severe type of weathers, but I don't know for sure. I don't really know much about these. I know Josh has one from HRCC, and he loves it, but he lives in California, and we don't even have rain here lately. So now let's just see if I think it gives some specs down here someplace, I thought. So the longest element's only 19 feet. That's like the Moxons and the Hexbeams. This is one of the major advantages to this antenna. It's way smaller. Okay, but being a full size, it should bring you pretty much full size gain. Okay, within a little bit heavy, 63 pounds. It's about double the weight of my antenna, I think. And I don't see specs on it here, guys, unfortunately. But I would assume this is on 20. Well, let's just stick with 20. It's probably in that 8 dBi gain, okay? Just like the Mosleys were. The only thing I would say, it does 6 meter. You can do 3 elements on 6 is okay. It's not the greatest. I've done 2 elements. It's not the greatest. That's why I have a 5-element separate antenna for that. But hey, it's kind of like that doublet. It gives you everything in one. So, and I think this is 6 through 20. Yeah, 6 through 20. You have to have a controller for it, though, to control it. Here's controllers. Here's control. There we go. So here's your controllers. I don't know if they come with them or not. I think the base antenna does come with a controller, if I remember right. But this is your like top of line controller. I don't know what it does, But you guys, I'll leave a link to this site also in the description section, so you guys can come check this out also. Good antennas. I'm sure they're great antennas. Maybe one of these days we'll get together with Josh and talk about what he likes and doesn't like about it. I think he's getting ready to do a video on that. Okay, so that's another option.
All right, I hope this video is helpful to some of you, hopefully everybody. But if you did like the video, please give me a like. It helps the algorithm and helps YouTube to find people that want to look at the kind of content that I put out. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe, hit all, and that way you'll get all my future videos. I'm Chuck, KK6USY, and this is Ham Radio Ventures. Thanks for being here. Hope to catch you on the airwaves.